I've got more than some of the big deals.
Test, test.
All right.
So,
Good afternoon. Are we streaming too?
Yes, we're recording and shooting.
it's feast or famine, that's why.
Yeah.
Did you go first?
We should get some colors.
Yeah.
Commission, you are live on YouTube, and we're also recording, so good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So we'll call to order the Madison Redevelopment Commission meeting of August 3rd, 2021. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from the July 13th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those? Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second?
All in favor? So moved. Second order, claims approval. There are claims that are being circulated now. They were in our packet from READI Financial, totaling $25,214.83. Sidewalk improvement plan, sewer bond pledge is a major one, and then professional services from READI Financial Group. So as these get circulated around, can I get a motion to approve and pay?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Old business. Do we have anything from there?
No.
No?
Nothing that wouldn't be captured in one of these other agenda items.
Okay. So moving on to new business, READI grant update.
Yeah, first let me introduce a couple of guests in the audience today. Emily Roberts, who is the director of our Madison Area Chamber of Commerce. She is here. She asked me the other day, how can I get more involved in economic development in the city? I said, if you want to see what's going on in Madison, come to a redevelopment commission meeting. And she took me up on it, so welcome. Dylan Fisher is here as well. Dylan is with the Wheatley Group, and they are our development consultants. So we have been working on a lot of high priority items with them on our economic development priorities across the city, which is pretty comprehensive because it's a combination of housing and infrastructure and quality of life and tourism related type things. And so Dylan is here, and we met with him just a little bit ago in order to go over our list of priorities. And as it relates to the READI grant, I mentioned this I think at the last meeting, but over the course of the last couple of weeks, the deadline to submit our proposal to the Southern Indiana Redevelopment Authority with regards to the READI grant. READI stands for Regional Economic Accelerated Development Initiative. Governor Holcomb's initiative was $500 million authorized through the budget to promote economic development across the state. We submitted two plans. One plan was for workforce development, and the second plan was destination development. And overall, between those two plans, they were multifaceted. It included housing, education, tourism, infrastructure, performance venues, and different types of economic development strategies across the city. And it totaled approximately $150 million in economic development that we project could happen over the course of the next 2 to 5 years, and that would have a $250 million impact to the Madison and Jefferson County economies. So it's really significant. We applied for approximately $11 million worth of READI grant to support that amount of economic development, which is actually a very small percentage, which is partially how you're going to be scored on your grant applications. And there was a lot of private capital investment through workforce expansion and housing in particular that is really the anchors of this particular plan. We just learned that Governor Holcomb had extended the statewide deadline by 30 days. So I believe it was moved to the end of September. Is that correct?
Yes, from August 30th.
Yes, from August 31st to the end of September. We submitted ours on time to the RDA. The RDA has already gone through a scoring process, and now they have a little bit of time to actually finalize the Regional Development Authority's proposal to the state. And the initial awarding of grants by the state is anticipated to happen at the end of the year. So we've still got 6 months or so to work through this, but at the end of the day, what we have is a real solid plan with a lot of different initiatives that are way beyond the concept stage. They are locations, partners, dollar amounts, and economic impact driven. So we're really happy about the READI grant process, even though it took a lot of work, and between Nicole, Shell, our city planner, myself, Dylan, and Alyssa, you know, it was like cramming for a final in college, because literally we had a few days to have it all kind of pulled together, and so everybody put a lot of effort in on it. I'm happy with the way the plan turned out. And I can answer any questions y'all have about READI before I turn toward the American Rescue Plan.
So for the 11 million, is there a commitment of any match that when you made that we're committing to?
Yes, there would be commitments of match, either in the form of property we would be contributing, tax abatements that we might be granting, or actual direct financial contributions. And we've not come through this body or city council for anything specific yet, other than generally talk about this, because it's still really fluid. So we provide our plan, it gets scored, and then would get incorporated in some way to the RDA plan, and then submitted to the state, and then the state makes a final decision on what they're going to actually fund. And so at that point in time, as we progress and get more information, and this thing really firms up, we'll have an idea of what level of financial commitment the city would have to make. But in all, it's probably between $10 and $20 million in order to create $150 million of investment across the city, which is really a pretty low margin. I think it'll be south of there, but again, it's still fluid. We'll figure out more as we go through the process. Good question. On the ARP, the American Rescue Plan, as part of that legislation, every county, city, town, school system, lots of entities receive some form of funding from the U.S. Treasury in order to essentially recover from coronavirus, the impacts of coronavirus. There are some very specific uses for it, such as speeding the recovery of tourism, broadband, water, stormwater infrastructure, hazard pay to essential workers, variety of different things. And so part of the requirement is that the city come up with a local plan that is approved by council, and the money is funded in 2 tranches, a year apart. We provided to city council, which they approved at the last council meeting, a local plan on how we would spend the first 50% of our $2.7 million allocation. And it was split across 4 categories. The bulk of the money was going toward flood risk mitigation and planning, in order for us to work with the Army Corps of Engineers and develop a plan. First of all, an analysis of our different special flood hazard areas in the city, and then doing some modeling to come up with the type of infrastructure that would be needed in order to mitigate future risk of flash flood events like we experienced in June. That's where a pretty good amount of money was appropriated for that, as well as dealing with some existing flooding and drainage problems we have across the city. The other area was speeding the recovery of tourism, some premium pay for essential workers, and then match grants. So one thing, as we talked about, John, you had mentioned, is there any matches required on these funds? ARP monies can be used for match on the READI grant program and other things. So the arrangement we're working out with the Army Corps of Engineers also has a 50% match requirement in it for their planning assistance And we've designated a portion of our ARP funds to pay for some of that match. And we've also asked the Jefferson County Commissioners to provide financial support to it because it was a county-wide, or there was actually damage in the county in addition to the city. And then we've also are looking at designating a portion of it for a major drinking water infrastructure project that we have in the planning stages. That cost is going to be approximately $15 million, and we've asked the Jefferson County Commissioners to commit $2.5 million of their American Rescue Plan funds to support that drinking water infrastructure plan. So there's like I said, it's $2.7 million for the city. Jefferson County received approximately $6.4 million. And one of the catalysts for it is to develop a local plan so we can have the fiscal bodies of each governmental entities approve how the money's going to be spent. And so our first tranche of the funds we've already claimed, and upon receipt of those, we'll start applying those funds towards their approved uses, which will also include economic development through the Redevelopment Commission. Timing's good to receive that money. We've also have a lot going on with regards to roads and sidewalks. You can see right now our major community crossing project with that grant proceed, which is a 50% match too, is dedicated to Main Street, taking care of some long deferred repairs that were due and needed for Main Street all the way to the top of Hanover Hill. Deputy Mayor McGee's been coordinating that. That process is underway, and it'll happen in phases, but ultimately it'll be finished, I believe, right before is it Riverfest or Chautauqua? I'll invite her to talk about that.
Apologize, I'm not dressed to be in public, but so just actually talked to Kenny Washer. They are just now finishing on this section, so all patching is done from Jefferson Street all the way to the Incline Bridge. Patching's done. They are headed over to the Milton Bridge to do just a little bit more over there that they needed to do. Tomorrow and Thursday, they will go on the west side of the Incline Bridge all the way to Hanover Hill and back down to the Incline Bridge. And all patching will be done this week. So that's fantastic.
Which is pretty, because there was a lot of patchwork that needed to be done.
Almost 200 needed to be done. I don't know how many we're going to end up getting done, but Kenny Washer's done a fantastic job of monitoring our tonnage on the asphalt use, because we're limited to about 1,150 tons for the entire project. So he says we're doing really well. We've used less than 500 on this Main Street section, so that's good. They will still stick to the schedule of patching will be done this week. That's early. That's earlier than we expected. They'll let everything rest until after Riverfest. And then as soon as Riverfest is over, the other crew will come in and start doing the crack sealing, the liquid asphalt, and restriping. So that'll be done before Chautauqua. So we're dodging festivals, but. And I think this has worked fairly well, just to give people a heads up that we're gonna be working in those lanes and keep traffic flowing on the other two, and then they can just move as fast as they need to move. So I don't think they were blocking store frontages or anything more than maybe an hour or so at each spot. So I'm very happy with their work and with Kenny's support on it.
That's good.
Lots going on there. I've got a few other updates, if you'd like me to just go ahead and go into those, because these are things that are, I think, of real interest to the Redevelopment Commission. So Dylan and Alyssa and I met prior to this meeting. We were just talking about our key initiatives and our economic development priorities, and the conversation, obviously was focused on READI, because embedded in that are economic development priorities on the hilltop and on downtown. We have lots of grant applications, honestly, that are out that will also be a source of match for us when and if we get awarded any of the actual READI grant monies. One of the things that we talked about, which you'll probably see on a future agenda here, is The city of Madison has been acquiring property in strategic locations over the course of the past year. And some of that property has either been put under site control or acquired through the Redevelopment Commission, such as Ruler Building and the Hilltop Shopping Center. Other properties have been acquired by the city of Madison. And as some of our plans for those properties start to materialize, what we talked about was for any property we've acquired where we have the intentions of developing it, co-developing it, selling it for development, that should probably really be in the Redevelopment Commission's ownership. So we'll be talking to legal counsel about that, and then maybe at the next meeting we'll talk about how do we transfer some of that property that we've acquired at the city into the Redevelopment Commission so that we can really vigorously pursue developing that property. Because not all the property that we've acquired is for future development. Some of it is for tourism and placemaking and quality of life and blight elimination just for the city without the intentions of transferring ownership to it. But you raise a good point, which is if we are going to be partnering and selling the property in the future, we should consider doing that through the Redevelopment Commission instead of just through City Council. So you may see that on a future agenda. Couple of updates. If you haven't had a chance to visit Cotton Mill yet, I would encourage you to do that. This was a major economic development project that was strongly supported by the Redevelopment Commission and City Council. Turned out to be, it's a beautiful property. I know they're still doing punch list work down there, but we are in the process now of processing the last capital draw from the city. It's about approximately $1 million for that project. We're going through the prescribed due diligence in order to fund that money, but that one is nearing completion. The Ohio Theater, which Redevelopment Commission supported with the $250,000 grant through Madison Main Street through to Ohio Theater, that work is almost complete, which is good. That was a lot of stabilization work, roof repairs, brick and mortar type things. That's going to be a tremendous catalyst to allow them to reopen for some level of events without further damage of the property to the elements because of the roof being exposed for the past couple of years. So we're processing, I think we have two current pay apps for that, and that contractor has done a good job, as well as the contractor for Cotton Mill done a really good job. We're going through the city budget process right now. We'll be talking more about later, but in that is some economic development priorities, particularly with streets and sidewalks and drainage and those types of things that would also have some funding from Redevelopment Commission. COVID grants. We did a third phase of small business support grants that have been impacted by coronavirus. And last week we awarded approximately $175,000 to small businesses. And we have a little bit of money left in that program and the match that we had committed to support some level of employee retention or support to small businesses to attract employees back to work. So we're working on creating something there. That was through Okra. That'll probably be the last pool of monies that I anticipate right now anyway that would be dedicated for that purpose. Many mentioned Main Street. That is what we're doing right now on Main Street. It will have a lot of benefit to all the different districts along Main Street, whether it be the central business district or residential or mixed use, because it will make some needed repairs. But that's really just to bridge us to 2025, 2026. We've already received a $5 million federal highway grant for that fiscal period. And the work we're doing now will just get us get us essentially extend the useful life of the road to that time period where we're already designing something a lot more substantial. And then lastly, Crystal Beach. We had a really good summer pool season at Crystal Beach. Over 13,000 visitors to the pool in the 2 months that it was open. We closed it 2 weeks early so that we could start the shutdown process with the pool, and then the contractor that we awarded for the restoration of the project is going to be about approximately $2.6, $2.7 million total restoration, and they'll be deploying to the site by the end of August in order to start the major renovations on Crystal Beach in preparation of being open, for Memorial Day weekend in 2022. And Redevelopment Commission has been really supportive of all of our stellar projects, and Crystal Beach is really the largest one that's getting state funding and Redevelopment Commission funding for its restoration. So a lot going on, and then on top of all that, we just have a tremendous amount of effort on the downtown grocery store. We're still working on the properties we're acquiring for our gateway projects, housing development, also working with private developers for the work that they're doing, and then also workforce development with industry. So we're very busy, but it's all good stuff, and it's all heading in a great direction.
Yeah.
John, those are my updates. Happy to answer any questions, or if you have any questions on the pro forma that was prepared by READI, I'll just make one quick comment on that, and that is we still have some aspirational things in there, but we're still refining really what our priorities are going to be for 2022. The READI grant process really shifted us into a different mode, and by the end of this year, the goal is to have some more definitive plans with what level of state support we're going to get through the READI grant process, which will then will transfer into our own financial planning process with Redevelopment Commission. Right now, we're good cash flow wise. We're good with the commitments that we've made. Many of what's identified here in our development plan are really going to be 2022 projects, not 2021. So we are talking about a number of different financing sources that would be available to us through Redevelopment Commission and through our utilities and through city to capture funding for everything.
Okay, I've got just one quick question, and it's kind of it's related to the economic development. Do you have the figures on our county unemployment rate? And as we continue to drive the economic development, I know probably a lot of businesses here continue to have problems getting people to come to work. And I don't know as we drive more development or more economic activity, how are we going to get people to work?
Well, first answer, the last stat I saw on unemployment was about 3.5% for Jefferson County. It's tracking pretty close to those statewide thing. As it relates to all of this development, there's no doubt that anybody who's working, particularly in the construction trade, is extremely busy. And you all know much better than I do about supply chain disruption that has driven prices up. And if you look at one of the most recent reports from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, inflation over the last 12 months is the highest it's probably been in the last 30 years. It's over 5% now. So that's factoring into everything we're doing from our local budgeting process and what it's going to cost. Most recently, we experienced that because the bids that we went out for with Crystal Beach were 25% over budget. So we've had to absorb that or experience higher costs. But the extended unemployment benefits, I believe, expire, I want to say either in September or October. The eviction moratorium, that expired July 31st. So there's going to be a lot of, unless the state or federal government extends these moratoriums even further, and they very well may, because coronavirus is making a resurgence in different ways. But if they just let things roll off the way they are, then there should be a natural motivation for people to have to come back into the workforce. And I think employers are already doing what they can to drive up incentives to bring them back into the workforce. I think on average, in Jefferson County, wage growth has probably been 10 or 11% in the past year, which is pretty phenomenal. I was looking at that statistic today too. So it's having an impact, and it will, how it eventually flushes out into the economy to some level of equilibrium, still yet to be seen, but that should naturally happen. We will get to some level of equilibrium, but it may not be where we were a year ago. It might be a new equilibrium. And as the disruptions that are in the marketplace now get flushed through the economy, we'll probably have a new normal. And that's probably going to be continued low unemployment and high demand, particularly for high demand jobs and skill sets, and higher wages. It's probably the new reality that we're dealing with. Don't know if that answered your question or not, but that's what I'm seeing on our end with regards to, the city itself is a pretty big enterprise. Our annual operating budget is right around $20 million. We have around $75 to $80 million in assets, 110 employees full-time. That probably grows 50% during the seasonal aspects of running the city. We're bringing in tens of millions of dollars of capital improvement through grants and other projects we're doing across the city. And then you extrapolate that out with Jefferson County, and it's a multiple of that. And that's why I said earlier, when we put together this READI grant, and we're identifying $150 million of realistic investment, the multiplier or the economic impact of that investment is almost $250 million, because that money cycles through the economy 5 or 6 times before it finally evaporates and goes out of your economy. But it's real meaningful dollars. The trends are really, really positive, but there are also some probably certainties in there, which is labor is going to be more expensive and tighter for the near foreseeable future. That's our biggest challenge too, as an employer. A lot of people, see and visualize things across the city and wonder, why hasn't that been done? Well, we're facing the same labor constraints as any other business, except for we don't have market pricing. We can't change our pricing to protect a margin in order to pay higher costs. The state tells us exactly how much money we can operate on.
Kind of handcuffed.
Yeah, you're handcuffed there, but we do have a few businesses inside the city that aren't governed by tax levies, and that's why it's important that we operate them as efficiently and effectively as possible, because probably about 40% of our annual budget comes from sources that aren't dependent on a property tax levy. And that makes us vulnerable because the need never goes down. The need is always increasing, and we do the best we can with what we have. And that's why we have to just be really efficient operators and managers and risk managers, so that we're doing the best with the resources that we're allocated.
Any other questions for the mayor? Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot going on, like you said.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Next meeting is September 7th, 3 p.m. There being no other business, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? So moved. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
So they're split into 2 different.
Okay. You guys questions on anything, let me know. Email, okay? Hey, I want to make one editorial correction from the article on that house on Jefferson Street. Blue was the color. Blue. Not pink. Blue. Blue.
Yeah.
Someone was talking about a pink house on a different corner.
Okay, that's what.
Madison, 5,
Emily, you got any questions on anything? I mean,
Yes, but I will.
I'm gonna send you our plans, and then you can really kind of start digging into all this stuff we're doing.
Well, my notes is like, what does that mean? What does that mean? We'll get there.
We'll see you later, thank you for coming.
Well, I wanna see these local.
Oh, yeah, somebody,
Yeah,
I
like
heard,
the
yeah,
pictures, they
somebody
took the
confused the
photos.
conversation, and they said, oh, like that other pink house down on that other corner? That's where that came from, so I knew where you got it from. Dylan, did you have anything you wanted to add to these guys? I'm sorry I should have.
No, it's all good.
Can I introduce you?
Yeah, why didn't you take me to last one?
So, I think you were gone maybe the last meeting, but
Yeah,
Dylan
but-
Fisher with the Wheatley Group,
Hey, Dylan,
while we're
John
in,
Gray.
John Gray,
Nice to meet
you.
Joe Craig.
I guess there's something one where we.
Carrie
put
Strauss.
sign
How are
on
you?
the
Great
to meet you as well.
Yeah, he was down there on the
John
end.
saw, he wasn't here, I saw.
So we have so much going on, we can't possibly do it ourselves, and a lot of it has really complicated structuring elements or funding elements to it.
I think we're.
And so the Wheatwood Group is a group that cities worked with before, so we brought Dylan and the Wheatwood Group in to help us through the balance of the year while we're putting together our job description and recruiting for a new economic development.
Okay, good.
And then when they did the READI thing, it was literally like throwing us, I mean, it was crazy. It was insane.
We have about 15 municipal clients, so everybody had the same craziness thrown into the fire at the same time.
It was
well done.
It was a massive amount of planning in a really, really short period of time. And we were literally just in my office for 2 or 3 days cranking it out, once we pulled all the information together. And then the governor goes and extends the deadline, so.
When they don't have the, I know the bill's not final, but if this infrastructure bill passes, we'll be getting more money, I assume, right?
I don't know, I hope so.
If they
Depends
do it
on
the same
at
way
the
they did
federal
the
level.
last. Yeah, the thought is it would be an allocation, the
I
same
hope
as
it's that way.
it has been, but there's also been discussion of it may go through federal highways, like through additional NDOT funding, and it would be, you all are probably within an MPO, so you all are not direct funding
We're not,
for those.
no, we
You
haven't
all
got-
are applications
Yeah.
based.
So we got $5 million that way for Main Street. We got that grant last year, but we can't access the money till their 2026 year, which is our 2025 year. But for us to do, honestly, for us to do Main Street the way it really needs to be done, we need about $15 million. And so I hope that if that infrastructure bill does get approved, it is allocated in a way that makes it fair for rural communities to get funded. That's the way I wish they had funded the READI Grant program. Right now it's a competition statewide. So I think that rural communities, there might be a propensity to kind of give them a little bit and give all the money basically to the bigger cities,
Right.
like they did last time. Hope that's not the case, but we have a lot going on, and we have a tremendous amount but the good news is it's a tremendous amount of investment by all of you guys, you know, in addition to the stuff we're working on, that it all works really, really well together. I mean, it's, our biggest need in our community is to grow our workforce, but to grow our workforce,